Hello and welcome back to the Transfer Flow. And on today's episode, we are taking a look at some European teams that you should check out this season. We've got Strasbourg and the players who could make the leap to Chelsea next. We've got Como with Cesc Fabregas developing as a manager and why his innovations this season might make us optimistic for his future. And we've got Eintracht Frankfurt, who are going to be the next forwards off the conveyor belt that brought us Mouhanni, Ekiteke and Marmouch. That's all on today's episode of the Transfer Flow. So we're back for another Wednesday edition of the podcast, except we're coming to you one day late this week. And joining me is Neel Shela. How are you doing, Neel?
I'm very good, Patrick. Good to see you and good to hear you as well.
Yeah, let's hope that it lasts for the duration of the podcast. Like recently we've had people dropping out. Like I had a bit of a robotic episode. But today it's all going to work. We don't have to deal with Ted's like rinky-dink Ukrainian internet. Like it should be totally fine. And I think that we've got a good episode today because we're look, Neel, your wheelhouse is extremely large, but we're very much in your wheelhouse. We're looking at some teams that people should pay more attention to this season. If you find yourself wanting to watch some football at the weekend and you want to tune into an interesting side you maybe haven't seen that much of, these are some picks from around Europe's top 5 leagues who might deserve some attention from you. Neel, you very helpfully gave us the shortlist for this. Where are we starting off with these sides?
Well, I think we should begin in Italy because I think this is the standout name which many people will be interested in. And that's Como, of course, coached by Cesc Fabregas. So that's probably the main reason everyone's interested. But also they have insanely rich owners and they've invested very heavily. It's about 200 million spent on player transfers since they got promoted last season. But it's not like, wasteful spending. They've not really gone for any like crazy big names to make like a statement signing. We're here, that type of thing. They've kind of really invested in a lot of young players. I think there was that clip going around on Twitter of Cesc Fabregas talking about youth development recently, which many people seem to like. And that's very much what you see in this squad is a lot of young talent. And we've got our transfer grades obviously going on right now in the newsletter. And we will have come out on Friday. I don't know what the grade is right now overall, but it's looking quite good for them. So we all really like the stuff they've done, and they've got like a very exciting squad with obviously Nico Paz is the standout name, but they also got Asa Nadia from Real Betis in the winter. This summer they were like, all right, we got that one great dribbler from Betis. Let's get the other one. So then they went and got Jesús Rodríguez, Martin Baturina, we really like as well. Really exciting creative players from Dinamo Zagreb, also 22. Maximo Perrone, also under 23. Had done well in La Liga before with Las Palmas, I think. But also just an exciting kind of ball-playing deeper midfielder. And Jacobo Raman as well from Real Madrid's B team. I think they got him for 2.5 million. I watched him a couple of times in the early games of the season, and he's looked really exciting. He looks like a really good well-rounded centre-back prospect, good on the ball, good defensively. So, there's this really young core of the squad with all like exciting talents to watch. And on top of that, an exciting young manager. And I mean, they did finish 10th last season, in their first season after promotion, which was the highest for a newly promoted Serie A team since 2019-20. So, they're clearly going well and on course to even build further and maybe push one step further up. But what have you made of them from last season, and what do you think is kind of the most exciting part of Como?
Well, I mean, I guess that Fabregas and Nico Paz are the two guys who get the attention, right? Like keeping hold of Nico Paz was kind of like their chief goal this summer.
Yeah.
And Real Madrid have got this buyback at a very, very low level. But Como turned down kind of like 5 times that from Spurs. So I think we've got to assume that there's some kind of benefit coming for them on the back end of that deal. I mean, he's obviously a bit of a cheat code for them. I think he's got 5 goal involvements so far. But what's interesting, there are a few things that are interesting about them. One is obviously they are targeting young talent who they think they can develop and probably flip in the long term. But they're not like teams we will come to later, just a youth project, right? Like when you look at their average age, it's quite middling. I think it's like about 26 years old, so in the middle of Serie A. And they've supplemented all these young signings this season with some experienced hands. They've brought in Stefan Porsche and Diego Carlos and Alvaro Morata. And so like this is not a team that is saying, oh, our only goal is to make a profit on player trading. right? Like, it is a team that's quite ambitious. And so far this season, those numbers have kicked up a little bit. I mean, we're only a few games in, but that expected goal difference has gone up from plus 0.06 last season to plus 0.26 this season, which is a pretty significant leap. I mean, and they've had a pretty middling schedule as well, and yet they're able to retain what we've seen of them, which is this quite extreme possession style. You know, this is a side that's played Lazio, that's played Fiorentina, that's played Bologna so far, and has 60% of the ball. Okay, they want to hold the ball, but what else is stylistically distinctive about the way that Cesc is playing, Neil? Because obviously now any young manager, and especially a young manager with a world famous name, is going to get linked with big clubs. What are we seeing in this early stage of Cesc Fabregas's coaching career?
Yeah, I think the interesting part, as you say, obviously is one, they're trying to keep a lot of possession, and two, they do have these, some like standout talents like Nico Paz. But generally, when you are trying to keep so much of the ball, and you'll face difficult situations, whether that's like a very intense high press or a very tough low block. If you're in charge of a big team, like if you're in charge of Real Madrid, for example, you can kind of uh, plan your approach in a way where you rely on, creating some talent advantage in a certain area. Maybe you want to isolate your winger, like let's say you want to isolate Vinicius against opponent's right back. You think there's something to be had there. With Como, obviously they have a lot of talents, but they don't really have someone except Nico Paz who you can rely on to kind of make the most of those situations every time. Like Jesús Rodríguez is a great example, right? He's probably going to beat the player, or he's certainly going to run at the fullback. But what he does after his end product, there's questions about that. So what's really interesting for Fabregas here is he has to kind of come up with these secure solutions where obviously on the one hand, you're trying to execute a certain style, you're trying to keep a lot of possession, you're trying to play through the thirds. But on the other hand, you also have to kind of make sure that the team as a whole, the structure as a whole is solid rather than relying on, let's say, one guy to make a difference. And again, Nico Paz does. So I for example, I watched this game against Genoa, which was super interesting because Genoa were pressing them like super high, fully player oriented high press from the start, and Como, they kind of line up in like a 4-2-3-1. So that's how they were building up initially, going out down the right a lot. And so they got the ball to the right winger, Nicolas Garicun, quite a bit. And then he ran at the fullback a few times, but he couldn't really do anything thereafter. And so like within 15 minutes, they kind of switched some stuff. They got Paz to drop back a lot, like almost alongside not alongside, but close to the defensive midfielders to offer an option. They got the right back to move inside, kind of create these rotations to open up gaps. And the keeper would sometimes hit it direct to Morata, and they'd kind of try to link from there. So they were trying all of these different variations, but all while they were doing that, they were like very secure with the ball. They didn't give away any cheap turnovers, which is obviously the main risk when you're dealing with a press like this. And the fact that they could kind of try these different solutions, to me, suggests that this is something they've kind of previously worked on, right? Because like 15 minutes into a game, you can't really change up and come up with like a new system. At best, at halftime, you can kind of give some more instructions, explain to some players what exactly you want. But if you're changing something like 15 minutes into the first half, that means this is stuff you've worked on. So they're already showing a lot of like tactical versatility, a lot of different options and solutions against different situations. So that's that's what I think is most interesting to me. That's what I want to watch more of. So that's why they're a very interesting watch tactically. And then of course players as well, right? I think like one of the so their average possession last season was 55%. As you said, they're at 60 now. Obviously just a few games, but it's not like easy games. It's not like they're playing relegation battlers. I think,
and they're playing teams who want the ball, like
exactly,
yeah.
Bologna, Fiorentina, yeah. So I think that the kind of main upgrade in that sense has come from two parts. One is, I think they have better ball players at the back now, especially someone like Jacobo Ramon, I really liked. Someone like Kakere in midfield, Perone if he's playing. And these guys, I think, are better at retaining the ball and playing out in these situations. And two, I was also quite impressed by their counter press high up the pitch. I think they've kind of developed that as well over the kind of course of last season to this. So it's really interesting to see how they're going about things, because they're trying to play, as you say, this style of play which you associate with more of the stronger teams who have a bigger talent advantage, and trying to impose themselves on the game more. And even though they don't have that big of an individual like player-to-player advantage, I think tactically they're super interesting. And obviously credit to the players as well for how well they execute, and the fact that obviously they have these various solutions, which makes them a very, very interesting watch.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm interested to see as we get more games is whether some of their poorer decision making starts to hurt them. So like obviously at the moment like there's a lot of passing around the back and a lot of safe passing there, but then there are a ton of dribbles attempted and a lot of them are not working out. I mean, like Jesús Rodríguez is a kid, but you brought him in because he's a ball carrier and a dribbler. Like that's why you got him. That's the thing that pops for him. He and Paz are attempting 12 dribbles a game between them, and they're completing about 4.5, which is, interesting. And when it works out, it might be very useful, but that's a lot of ball to cough up. And similarly, their shot quality is quite low, and it was quite low last season as well. Now, I know that is a bit of a Serie A thing, like that average shot quality in Serie A is generally lower than it is in other leagues. But this is a lot of value you're losing if you are a possession side. If you're kind of like, okay, we take our time getting up the pitch, but then when we get there, maybe we settle for a crappy shot. You're actually sacrificing an awful lot of kind of game time and effort just to get that crappy shot. If Nico Paz is taking it, then maybe it's slightly less crappy than it would be for another side. But still, whether that's like the most efficient method is an open question, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And also when you look at their profile of attackers, obviously they're like their striker, whoever it will be, like Morata or whoever, is someone who's like gonna be occupying the box. But then everyone around, whether it's Paz, the left winger, whether that's Rodriguez, Diao, the right winger, Gerrit Kun, whoever, they're not really people who are like particularly great at box crashing or occupying the box. So that's also going to be interesting to see how they kind of go about this creation question. And also, as we'll come on to the games where they face more of these lower blocks, because as you said, so far, like Lazio, Bologna, Fiorentina, and even, like I said, Genoa were pressing high. So these were games where they kind of could bait the opponent and try and attack in transition with the front three and Paz, of course. But as you face, someone like, I don't know, like a Torino or Cremonese they have next, it's going to be interesting to see how they break down those blocks without maybe that many box presences. So that's going to be maybe one of the big challenges for Fabregas and the coaching staff to try and come up with ideas. But yeah, I mean, like, over the course of the season, I think, I don't know what you think, but I think like there is an opening in the top 7 for these guys to push towards.
Sure, yeah.
They've already kind of beaten Lazio and Fiorentina, who are direct rivals, and only narrowly lost to Bologna. And all these teams I think can feasibly drop out. Even someone like an Atalanta, I don't know, even Inter sometimes, like when I look at them, I'm like, what's going on, guys? I mean, I don't think they can push like all the way up to Inter level, but they can definitely push for like, the Conference League spot and at least be in that race. So that's probably what I'm interested to see in terms of how far they can go.
Yeah, I think that's basically like kind of my same read on them, and that might help them next season when we kind of assume that the Paz replacement is going to have to come in. Like they must be. That's obviously the issue. Like what happens when you lose this superstar player? Can you reload and go again? But if they can do that with some Conference League money or even Europa League money, and I agree with you. I think that's totally possible. A bunch of these teams have had considerably more turnover than Como. And I think as well, like somebody like Jesús Rodríguez is an X factor. Like is he a super efficient player at this stage of his career? No, but he can break a game open in a way that very few kind of players can, and he's getting a ton of box touches. And you think, well, if you get enough box touches, then you hope that eventually the dangerous passes and the shots will come. He's still in his teens. Shall we move on from Como though then to a team which has a very different project? If Como's intention is we are going to try and climb up the division and try and really rival the teams at least on the edge of the title race, Strasbourg they are just a feeder club. Like they are a feeder club.
We're going to create players for Chelsea. That's what we're going to do.
Exactly. Well, and perhaps it's not just players, right? Like the other question is, can they create a coach? Like Liam Rossini is their coach now. It's his second year in the job. And obviously there was a big improvement last year. It's quite hard, I think, to separate what a coach is doing from like the talent Strasbourg has access to, but they are a super young team, Strasbourg. I think, like you said this to me, that they're the youngest team in Europe's top 5 leagues. They've got an average age of 22.4.
Well, so yeah, so that's the average like squad age, right? Like when you take the players. If you take that average age based on minutes played, like who's been on the pitch, do you know what their value is this season?
It must be insane.
It's 21.5.
Well, they've got one outfield player, right, who's over 24, and it's Ben Chilwell.
Exactly. They've like Ben Chilwell as their token old dude, and then everyone else is children.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, do you know what the second youngest team is in Europe's top 5 leagues? This is not weighted by minutes, but just by squad age.
The squad, I do know last season by minutes it was PSG, so it could well be them.
It's Chelsea. It's Chelsea this season. Like PSG last season, yeah, but like I think PSG are like 23.6 and Chelsea are 23.4. But that's a whole year older than Strasbourg. So I mean, like they are insanely young. Like
and by minutes played, so Strasbourg are 21.5 this season. The next is 24.3. So it's nearly 3 years by minutes played.
And this is all as well being brought up by like having a 35-year-old goalkeeper in your squad. Yeah. You know, where I'm like that guy must feel insane in that dressing room. that's like me coming to uni with you, Neel, and doing like a hello my fellow kids like move. But yeah, obviously they're kind of designed to feed players to Chelsea. Maybe Rossini could do that too, though I'm not sure about that. Like, what do you make of him? Because obviously when he was at Hull, the story when he left was that there was a difference of opinion about how attacking the team should be. There was a question mark about whether he was too defensive. What kind of style do we see him playing at Strasbourg?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't say it's too defensive. Like, if you look at it just in terms of how they put it together on the pitch, like in terms of structure, it's actually super similar to Chelsea because they also create like a very expansive back three in possession. Last season it was more of a double pivot in midfield, so kind of a box midfield and then a very spread out front three, just like Chelsea, super wide wingers, a high striker. And this season it's also similar to what Chelsea are doing, where they have just this one defensive midfielder, attacking midfield trio in the center, including the left back going inside, like very much like Cucurella often does for Chelsea. And then again, this like high and super spread front three. So, I mean, obviously Rossini does have like a significant sample of games that he took charge of at Hull. But in this case, like I would wonder to what extent is this, Rossini's tactics and exactly what he wants to do? And also to what extent is this them basically kind of just not exactly copying the blueprint, but putting together a very similar system to Chelsea, whereby what you can do is pick a guy up and then put him there, and then pick a guy up from there and put him here, which they have done a bit already. Like, Andre Santos, for example, played for them last season, is at Chelsea now. Matis Amugu was bench warming at Chelsea last season. He's playing for them now. So, to facilitate those kinds of easy like moves, it obviously helps to have these very similar systems. But what then do you make of the coach is a tougher question. But I mean, definitely like the attacking thing is not necessarily what I would kind of fault him for, because I think they had like certainly one of the worst, like they were in the lower table for expected goals against in Liga last season. And again, because of just how expansive they play and also how many like youngsters they have, they do give up a fair bit. So yeah, it's not like negative football. It's not like boring. But I mean, for me, it's just difficult to read. I mean, and like you've seen, there's been a few clips of his like team talks and stuff, which are all good. But like, it's just tough for me to get an exact read on him tactically at Strasbourg, given this like multi-club dynamic thing going on. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, you can see also at the moment that things are a little bit wobbly because there is so much turnover, or at least that's kind of what I put it down to. Like, I mean, they obviously press high. We can see that, they're making more tackles in the final third than like Monaco and PSG right now. Like they are being aggressive, but they're not really producing shots off it. And they also aren't advancing that well at the moment. It feels like there's a lot of kind of stodgy midfield possession in their games. But again, like we've seen them roll out. We saw them roll out a front three where they had, Paez and Barco behind Panichelli. And you think, well, these are just three guys who don't know each other. like it's not that surprising that they don't. And Panichelli was like the big move of the summer, right? Like he was on loan at Mirandes last season from Alaves and got 24 goal involvements as a 21-year-old in the second tier. He's got some goals so far this season, but he's kind of like the guy they need to see something from this season, right? Because he feels like they're hoping he will take the first choice striker position when Amiga goes off to join Chelsea next year.
Yeah, and obviously that Amiga move did not go down well with the fans at all, which I think is obviously completely understandable from their perspective. But yeah, like it's Panichelli, definitely there's a lot riding on him because, you look, obviously, except for Amiga, like you do wonder where the goals are going to come from in this team because, a couple of the, like I said, Andre Santos left. Amiga was the top scorer last season, I think, and Santos and Bakwa were second and third. And Bakwa obviously went to Nottingham first. So, the new guys have come in. Nico Paz obviously is very young, highly rated, but I don't know how many goals he's going to give them. Amugo obviously going to probably be a bit deeper in midfield. And then Diego Moreira is continuing from last season. He also had done well. So you'd probably want him to take like a one step further as well. But yeah, like there's a lot riding on the striker in terms of getting the goals. And also, like you said, like generally they don't look as like coherent this season because of, just like the insane amount of turnover, which, especially in the starting lineup, which like that makes it very difficult for anyone to put it all together. So look, I mean, like I think what I say about Strasbourg is they're an interesting team to watch for a neutral because they just have a bunch of kids on the pitch and like there's a lot of exciting young talents. But like if you're a supporter, it's a bit sad because you can't basically really get attached to any of the players because if they do well, they're gonna be gone, and if they do badly, they're also gonna be gone. So
yeah. And it's not even like the money kind of
also
feeds back into you.
If they grow old, like if they grow old by 2 years, they're too old for Blueco's age core cutoff, so they're going to be gone as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, and under normal circumstances, you'd think, oh, wow, well, they got a load of money for Bakwa. Like, that was a good sale. Does it really help Strasbourg out? Like, not really.
That money went to Dortmund for Gittins. That's where it went.
Yeah, so, I mean, I also wonder, I mean, this is maybe a topic for a long-term study, but unless you're creating shots off your high pressing, it is possible that if you've got a young squad, you may be at a creative disadvantage in some ways, right? Because we know that passing and creative passing especially is a skill that develops with age. So unless you're playing a very transitional style, it's quite hard to have that person who is hitting their peak as a creative passer. Like Diego Moreira is the interesting guy, I think. Like he feels like the big sale waiting to happen in this squad, right? Obviously, he's still 21, but he's a left footer who's played wing back and he's played some right wing as well and huge defensive work rate. And this season, we're seeing even more defensive output than previously, plus more carrying, plus more passing, plus more dangerous passing. Like, so he feels like one of those guys who a bunch of teams could do with. The question will be whether there's a team who can pay a really meaty fee for him, because you look at him and I think, oh, okay, like maybe Grimaldo's 30 now. You'd be an interesting fit for that role. Or what if you went to a club like Crystal Palace and you actually got some minutes in both those positions that you've played in? That would be interesting. But are these teams going to pay the kind of fee that you want for somebody who looks this promising? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. And also, Chelsea might also look at him and go, well, who's our backup for Cucurella? Ooh, let's get this guy. And then that's it. That's the last we see of him for 3 years. So that's the risk as well.
Chelsea looking at any young player, Chelsea thinking like, is this a faceless? Is this a tradable asset?
So I was bit of a sidebar. I was following Kairat Almaty in Kazakhstan because, of course, I was last season.
Of course you were. Yeah.
Because it was an amazing title race. I mean, I wrote about the title race, but anyway. So Kairat, I think, ended up winning. And they had this 17-year-old kid called Dastan Satpayev who looked super promising last season. He had some bench minutes, like amazing ball striking. Okay, so I saw a bit of him in the league. And then like fast forward to now, Champions League qualifiers, and like the guy's starting, and obviously they got through. I was like, oh, this guy looks interesting. Like, what's going on with him? I like clicked on his profile, upcoming transfer. The moment he turns 18, he's off to Chelsea.
Man, this is the thing, right? There's been all this talk about like the rapture recently, but that does actually happen when you're a teenage footballer. Like you hit 18 and you come home and your dad is shaking hands with like Todd Bowley.
You walk through a portal and you're in London.
This is the thing, man. Like they're paying Arsenal. It feels like he's just gonna like. I can't remember if that's away or if it's in London. But if it's in London, he'll just stay. Just stay. He'll never go home.
Yeah, well,
look. I mean, that is basically the enjoyment, right? It's like if you want to see what the future of Chelsea and maybe a bunch of top teams looks like, then Strasbourg are quite a good way to get a jump on everybody else. And it's not like they should be around the edge of the Champions League race at least this season. But the season has started in a kind of very funky fashion though in France, where like I think like PSG's numbers have not been great domestically. Like they're actually slightly below Strasbourg, and Strasbourg are below like Lyon and Lille. And just like that, it's a really weird like topsy-turvy thing where it's almost like PSG are kind of like, we will use the league. Like we're trying to do kick flips here, like we're like, we'll just try some weird shit.
We're doing pre-season, guys.
We're doing 1080s here, and then we'll like get serious later on. Okay, but Strasbourg, very interesting team, and I do think that some of these guys are going to end up being household names. Like Dylan Bakwa, I think has looked really, really promising for Forest this season. I mean, even coming on in the Arsenal game where you were like, this is not a good environment to come on in. I thought he looked great. I thought he looked really good. His combination of carrying and the passes he can pick forward between the lines, like very exciting. I guess he is kind of what you're talking about though, right? As in he gets to 23 and it's like, if you're not a superstar, see you later. Like anyway, should we go then to a totally different kind of club? Elche got promoted last year. They jumped from 11th up to 2nd in the Segunda Liga. And they've got this interesting coach, Eder Sarabia, who was an assistant at Las Palmas, at Betis, at Barca. He'd been a youth coach at Villarreal, and they plucked him out of FC Andorra, which is super cool. What kind of football are they playing? Like right now, when you look at their numbers, and especially when you look at them last season, you're like, this is a team that has a very solid defense. But how do they go about creating that defense? Because stylistically, they're very, very unusual.
Yeah, they're unusual generally, and they're like extra unusual for La Liga. Because as you're alluding to there, they are like a high possession team, right? So last season they had 61.7% possession in the Segunda División, and not a single guy in double digit for goals. Because what they do is they pass the ball, and then they pass the ball, and then they pass the ball back, and they pass the ball back again, and then they pass again, and that's all they do. I mean, I think there was a lot of talk about like over the weekend with the City Arsenal game, with obviously Pep, 4-4-2, he dropping a low block, all of that. But what often many people say is like, actually Pep is a super conservative coach. It's just he sees possession as a tool to be like safe, secure. And this is like the extreme example of possession as a tool for defense. Because what these guys are doing is, like, even right now, they're 57% possession in the league so far. They're 16th for XG, and they're 3rd for goals conceded, with just 4 goals conceded in 5 games. They're playing Osasuna tonight, so that might change. But like, they are like very much like pass it, like from the wing backs, the center backs, the midfielders, and just keep passing on and on and on. And maybe once in a while look for a striker, but mostly just keep it back there. And I mean, especially in recent years in La Liga, what at least I've noticed is at the lower end of the table, we have a lot of these like direct and low block defensive teams. So obviously Getafe are like the poster boys. I mean, everyone knows about Bordalas, absolute legend. But apart from him, like Mallorca, Osasuna, to an extent Osasuna, but Alaves, for example. And all of these teams are just like, we're going to low block and we're going to kick it long to our big striker. He's going to win a flick on and someone's going to run and maybe they'll score a goal, but mostly we're going to low block. They're like the only outlier, the main outlier rather, over the last 2 seasons was Las Palmas. But they were like, they weren't like Elche in the sense that they weren't like super conservative with possession. They actually tried to get forward. But that didn't go too well for them. They finished 16th first season and they got relegated quite like by a big margin last season. So Elche now have come about with this like I said, this possession as a tool for defense kind of approach. And I mean, I like when you think about it, I think it does work actually, because where La Liga is at right now, like, there's many of these top teams. Obviously, Barca, Real, like that's a different question altogether. But even you think about someone like Villarreal, Athletic Club, even Valencia, Sevilla, these teams, they all have attackers who can like hurt you. And if you're just on a low block against them for 70 minutes and maybe get something on the break, it's a bit of a dangerous game to play. So if you kind of flip the script and two, then when like when Getafe play Mallorca, for example, it's just a pure long ball fest. And like no one's really got control over what's going on. It's just, who's going to win more deals, that kind of thing. But now Elche have come in with like a very different approach where one, they can play this like very, and even like at Andorra, Eder Sarabia did kind of, he got them promoted to the Segunda División, but then he did do like this possession haram ball, as some might call it. And now that's like often what they do against these teams. But like I will say also, like they have shown certain glimpses of like nice quick passing play. Like I watched them against Atleti, and when Atleti tried to press them, they were actually really good at just playing quickly through it. They do have some like midfield rotations in the opposition half. I saw this stat. So they beat Levante 2-0 earlier, and in the opening 20 minutes, they averaged 94% possession and had 121 passes in the opposition half and allowed 6. So like they went insane for this, and that's what I'm saying. Like if that was Getafe against Levante, like those guys would have had 5 passes in the opposition half each, and then just a million long balls. So this kind of different approach, it might well end up working for them. So that's why I think they're a very exciting and interesting team to watch, because they're like going against the meta a bit, but I think they're going in a intelligent direction.
Yeah, I think when I was reading about them, the natural comparison that came to mind was when Brendan Rodgers got promoted with Swansea, because they used possession in exactly this same way, which was just like, I mean, at that point, of course, you didn't have a very high pressing league, but La Liga isn't a particularly aggressive league in that regard either, and they were just kind of like, as long as we have the ball, you can't hurt us. And I think it was interesting that the Athletic game was a bit of a weird one, I thought, for them though, because it was much more transitional than I think Elche will hope these games are, right? And there was that ball. The disadvantage of really only engaging your press when the opposition come into the midfield is that you do get some of those defenders who can come forward and pick a really great pass. And that's how that Sorloth goal happens, where you've got an unpressured ball into the channel and it's a great finish. There are going to be some of those spaces you think that needs to get closed up, or teams will figure it out in the back half of the season. But yeah, I quite like how they've approached their transfer business as well. Like their biggest signing was 2.15 million, Redondo from Miami,
and he's been sat on the bench the whole time.
Sure. Well, and then they brought in a ton of loans.
Yeah,
but they did get really good players in loans. Like, I mean, like getting in Hector Fort and Iñaki Peña and Rafa Mir, and then they paid €1 million for Andre Silva from Leipzig, which I think that guy's been underrated pretty much his entire career. I think that's a very good possible weapon for a promoted team to have in Spain, who shouldn't really have access to a player like that. Also, if you're a big naming guys person, Grady Diangana going there on a free is crazy. I was just like, what? I haven't heard that name in so long. He's still only like 27, 28, man.
There's no way. I thought this dude was like 36.
No, man.
There's no way.
Nothing wrong being
where's
36,
he been?
but yeah. Like they get from where he's at West Brom. He came from West Brom on the
free. You just said West Brom this whole time?
I don't know what he's been doing.
He was. He was a wow. He just dropped off my radar. Okay.
So it feels like they've got young guys, And actually, La Liga has generally been trending in that direction.
This
right?
guy, Alvaro Rodriguez, Real Madrid Loni, he's looked good. I think got a couple assists so far. And yeah, like the strikers are interesting because there's this bunch of passing, but then they do need these like target striker kind of guys to get on the end of crosses, or make the runs in the channel like Rodriguez does. So yeah, it's not like it's obviously not like Strasbourg. It's not a bunch of children, but it's like interesting collection of players.
Well, and actually, I mean, when you look at the youngest teams in Spain, the teams that are younger than them are Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Real Sociedad, and that's it.
That's it.
And then the team that's fifth is Villarreal. So actually now, like the best teams in Spain are the younger teams. I mean, obviously with Real Madrid and Barcelona, it's like, lots of factors going into that. But it's interesting that the league has been moving a little bit younger. I mean, we should temper expectations here for people who are going to check in on Elche. Like, they are a mildly negative shots team. They are like around the middle of the division for actual like XG created, conceded. Like they're just right in the middle. That's a very good position to be in it for a promoted side. But if you go and watch Elche, you are probably going to need to get yourself into the mindset of, isn't this interesting? As opposed to, my God, I'm so entertained. Like, plus, I should say, given that Ted isn't here, they need to get thinking about set pieces. Because early in the season, it might just be noise, but they've created 0.5 XG off set pieces through 5 games, which is the second lowest in Spain. And like, if you're a promoted team, like, just try and get yourself some cheap goals. And these are cheap goals. Like, you should be able to get yourself these.
And you're playing 3 at the back with like 2 tall strikers. Like, dude, just put a good cross in, have some good set piece design. You'll get some goals. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love it when every now and then Spain does throw up like somebody doing something genuinely new and interesting. And it's always great. Like, I mean, it's not always entertaining. Like, I do long for the days of like Paco Gemes, but Elche are very interesting, and they are trying a different approach. And I think this season it is nice to see some promoted teams, not just there. I mean, even in the Premier League, like look at like Sunderland tried a different transfer approach, which has got them 8 points on the board so far. It's nice to see some of these promoted teams say, okay, what do we do to break into this, what appears to be a closed shop? Not quite the case in Spain, but when you've got no money. Shall we go on to Germany? Because
let's do real entertaining
Elche
football.
games. Well, if Elche games are fairly low event, right? Like it's like 20 shots between the two sides. Frankfurt, between the two sides right now, I think they're at like over 28 shots per game. Like they have got a lot of XG for and a ton of XG against. They've got Bayern not in their next game, but in the one after that. But they really deserve some credit here. Like, Dino Topmüller took over in 2023. And in the time he's been in charge, he's finished 5th and he's finished 3rd. And Frankfurt have made about 160 million euros net on player trading. That is a fairly astonishing achievement. And some would say that it is helped by people overpaying for some of their players. But they've also developed really good players. Like they've sold Marmouch in that time. They've obviously sold Ekiteke. They've also sold Colin Mouhanni. But to do all that and basically to be a good competitive side every year is pretty remarkable. And this season, they've brought in Burkhardt to replace Ekiteke. So you've got Wahi, you've got Knauf, you've got Michy Batshuayi, another naming guy in the attack. And then, of course, you've got Uzun, like this teenager. And Neel, he already looks like a super, super exciting talent.
Yeah, I mean, he's already had, 8 goal involvements in 5 games this season. And we're a month in and he's already hitting double digits. But I think what really helped him was, last season he got to be a kind of an understudy where obviously, Marmouch and Ekiteke were the main guys and he was going to get more bench minutes because he did have like that 19 goal season in the Zweite Bundesliga before. But now I got this one season to kind of adjust to this new surroundings. And now when he's going to be one of the main guys, I think he's very much ready to go and kick on and have this like standout season. I mean, there was this very interesting piece I was reading by Jake Entwistle on Scouted on the, I think Monday Night Scouted it was, where he was looking at like the data of Uzun from like the last year or so, I think, and comparing him to a few other guys. And the kind of closest comparison he got among the big 5 leagues with young players was actually Nico Paz, but obviously someone who's not passing as much as Nico Paz and someone who's operating closer to goal because Paz drifts around a lot. But Uzun's like when he's close to goal in that like zone 14 area, which we call, outside the box, he's doing similar stuff. Obviously, he links up, gets a lot of shots off. And he also obviously compared them to Kenan Yildiz and Arda Güler, the other two kind of standout Turkish youngsters. And like he was kind of very much between them, but Güler is obviously more creative one. Yildiz more of a dribbler who kind of runs at and also moves cleverly into the box. And Uzun's kind of got a bit of a mix of those traits. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to watch him. But I'll also say I'm very excited to watch Jean-Matteo Bahoya. He's not had like a superstar breakout season yet. I think he's not even hit 1,000 minutes in a league yet. This is probably going to be the first time he does that. So, this isn't like on the back of seeing him like tear up Ligue 2 and thinking, okay, he's going to do that. But like just what I've seen of him, like for one, his footwork while he's dribbling is just like absolutely dazzling. He's like so quick and he's got a serious turn of speed, but he's also like, he's obviously likes to drive inside onto his favored right foot, but he's also shown that he can go back out and put in a decent ball into the box with his left. He plays on the right wing, on the left wing, sorry. But he's also like linking up, he's dropping back, he's doing a lot of things. I mean, I think he's more of a raw talent in that we see this exciting dribbling, some nice passing, some nice creativity. He does need to put it all together. I think his shooting can definitely improve in terms of the areas and also the quality of his shots. But he also works very hard off the ball, like gets back a lot, tracks back fully, and runs hard. So, like to me, he's someone who's shown like all the ingredients of having like a really good season. We're yet to see it from him in any league, but I'm hoping he can actually break out this season. So he's definitely going to be entertaining either way. Like if he gets goals or not, like when he has the ball, he's a real live wire. So yeah, those two are the main guys I want to watch in that attack.
Who would you compare him to? Is there a player who is a kind of like natural model for him as he develops?
That's to be honest, I didn't think about that. But like sometimes, because he's obviously starting wide on the left, but sometimes like he's also like a fairly tall guy. So sometimes his like his footwork and his dribbling tendencies remind me of Ekiteke drift. Obviously, it's a straightforward because Frankfurt and all that French, but they do remind me of Ekiteke, like his footwork. But yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, like I think like if there's a player he's trying to like follow in the footsteps of, I'm tempted to say someone like Kaoru Mitoma, because I think he's like Mitoma also someone who works really hard off the ball. Gets back a lot defensively, super like dribbling threat. But obviously Mitoma is far more refined with his output, his end product. Being able to cut inside, get shots, also being able to attack the box. So these are the things I think like Bahoya should work on improving, because his footwork's incredible, but he just needs to kind of put everything else together around it. So yeah, like I think like studying someone like Mitoma, for example, that would be very interesting to see if he can progress in that direction.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, and again, kind of the same thing as Strasbourg, I guess, in some ways. Like the guys who are ripping it up at Frankfurt this season will be the guys who are moving for big money next season. Like Burkhardt has landed really, really nicely. It's kind of crazy that nobody's taken a serious interest in Ansgar Knauf as well. Like that's quite surprising. The main thing for them as a team right now, though, is like they take a decent number of shots and their shots are slightly above average quality, but they give up a lot of shots. The shots they give up are slightly below average quality. So really all the positive difference in their numbers right now is that their shots are better than their opponents. It does feel like they need to lock that down. Like when you watch them, they do look quite disorganized when the press is broken. Like they've got a lot of guys in the midfield who are kind of see ball, get ball. And then when they don't get ball, then if you just go and watch like even the highlights from the Union game, like you will see some like people scrambling, defensive lines in total disarray. Very enjoyable. Is that a general problem, or is that something that's been particular to the start of this season?
That's a general problem with Frankfurt. Like even last season, they were so open. And you were saying like at the start about obviously how impressive they've been over the last few years since Top Miller's come in. But I think like Top Miller is like someone, at least to me, he seems like the perfect fit for Frankfurt, and Frankfurt the perfect fit for him. But if I'm another club, I would be hesitant in going for him right now. I mean, he's obviously still 44 years old, so there's much room to develop. But like right now, Top Miller to me is someone who's like an excellent kind of platformer, and like he understands like profiles and evaluates the talent he has really well, especially in attack. So he'll make these, like we saw that last season, right? Starting with Ekiteke Marmouch, then being able to deal without Marmouch. Now he's got a bunch of new guys, obviously forming that in the first place last season. He's excellent at doing that. But when we think about maybe like some more like in-game tactical, like more details and tweaks, like the stuff we were talking about with Fabregas, that's the kind of stuff I don't see much of from Top Miller. But he's not someone who I feel who's like creating in-game solutions a lot, and like out of possession, for example, like they have tried, they can press and they do try to press, but it's always like quite exploitable whenever like you talk with the Union game. I saw them against Leverkusen in like Kasper Hillman's like first or second game, and even those guys were playing through their press. Like that dude had been there for a week and they were playing straight through their press. So, like out of possession, they're going to be open. Like the main question I have this season is like last season, as you're saying, they were, giving up a lot, creating a lot, but then they had these two incredible forwards. And also they were Mohammed, who obviously writes for a newsletter, wrote a great piece for Analytics FC, like analyzing how they're playing last season and how they can transition to this season. And like last season, they were like ultra transitional. They're like building out with like 7 players at the back and then just trying to hit the 2 forwards to run in transition. And sometimes they did that a lot, of course, but then they also gave up some chances sometimes. But now it's a different, a bit of a different situation where they don't have like elite ball carriers and runners of that level. They have like Uzun, for example, right, is someone who we've seen is like trying to operate closer to the box and link up more there. So and in the games I've watched, I feel like they're trying to establish like a bit more control over possession rather than always looking transitional, which I think like logically makes sense based on the talent they have, the kinds of players they now have, and what they've lost. But I'm interested to see how they execute actually, because with this now, there's more emphasis now on the rest defense. There's more emphasis on having like a good press, and these are questions I do have. So yeah, again, they're definitely going to be entertaining to watch. Like that's for sure. Exciting talents, open games, like that's guaranteed. But yeah, like tactically, I do have a few questions, so I'm interested to watch how that progresses.
Yeah, I mean they've already been super fun. Like you've got that 4-3 against Union Berlin, and then was it 5-1 in the Champions League that as well against Gala? I think.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
So they've been.
Oh, yeah, and then they hit.
So it's already been a ton of goals
for 4-1.
Carnage all over the place. But yeah, obviously good fun to watch. So if you watch an Elche game and then you think, what does it sound like when a ball hits the net? I would love to know what that sounds like. Maybe check out a Frankfurt match. We're going to wrap up here with our last team, which is arguably our most Neel team, because we're going to Belgium. And Union Saint-Gilloise, who won their league last season, for ending a 90-year title drought. A great feel-good story. And I mean, for those people who don't know it, and I imagine most people know at this point, but they were bought back in 2017 by Tony Bloom, and he was a majority owner at the time. He became a minority owner over time in order to resolve the kind of multi-club ownership issues with UEFA. But they have slowly got better and better, and they've been in the title race the last 4 years with clever player trading and just generally kind of trying to improve themselves. They're now coached by a former Brighton player, right, in Sebastian Pocognoli. Why should we be watching them this season, Neel? What's exciting about Union?
They've had like a very interesting few years as well, because I mean, like you said, they've been title race for 4 years. Like basically the season they got promoted, they were instantly in the title race. And like throughout these years, their wage bill has actually been like with the relegation battlers. and they've basically only really reinvested what they made in player sales. So it's not like, obviously Bloom's come in, but he's not like spent a ton of money. Obviously, like there's the Jamestown analytics angle, which, as you were alluding to, is kind of the key. But like just one in general, it's like you said, such an amazing story, because like in the season they were promoted, they actually finished first at the end of the regular season. But then Belgium have these weird championship playoffs where at the end of the season, the top 4 or top 6, their points get halved. They go into a mini league of their own. They play each other home and away. And then like whoever ends up first finishes, wins the league. So Club Brugge beat them that way. Next couple of seasons, similar stuff happened. One time they even lost the league on like the last day, in the last 10 minutes of the season, with against like with Royal Antwerp winning, with like the trophy in a helicopter situation thing going on. So it was like it's a real heartbreak for them for those couple of years. They did win the cup in 24, but then like you said, with Pocognoli, they finally won. And the funny thing is, they were actually not that great in the regular season. They just about got into the championship playoffs, and then they won it in the playoffs last season. And now they're scrapping the playoffs from next season onwards. So I just a very cool story there. But also a very historic club. You know, like you said, nearly a century ago they won. Have a really cool stadium. So I really like them in many ways. And I like when we talk about on pitch stuff, besides all the player transfers, which we'll get onto, they've also had a lot of coach turnover. Like every season they're basically changing coaches, because I mean they do well and then their coach would get picked up. So this is the first time since promotion that they actually kept their coach. Because before Felice Mazu was like got them promoted, he moved to, I think, Anderlecht. His assistant Karel Geretz took over. He moved to Schalke at the end of the season. Alexander Blessing came in, did well, moved to St. Pauli. And now it's Pocognoli, and he managed to stick around because this is like his first senior coaching job. He's only 36 years old. And now they're in an interesting place where, like, before, obviously, they've had a lot of talents come through, a lot of big sales. I mean, that Dennis Undav, Dante Van Zier strike partnership from like their first season is definitely something which like Belgian and certainly their fans will remember for a long time. But now when you look at their squad, you know, they've had a lot of like different kind of shapes and changes in these few years, where at first they were kind of looking for value in like random European leagues. Then they moved more international, South America, more signings from like other parts. But now they've come to this point where they do have, you know, a few talents like these. So they have Promise David, a Canadian striker who they got from Estonia, who's super, super exciting talent, you know, really like strong, well built forward, but also quick, clever mover, gets in the box a lot, gets a lot of shots. Very exciting player. Kevin Rodriguez from Ecuador, another kind of pretty big, well built striker, runs the channels, but also like can be a target and help create a little bit. And then this summer they went and got Raul Florux from Olimpia Ljubljana, because of course. And he also looks like an interesting prospect, like a clever kind of runner, and he's like a nice kind of partner to someone like Rodriguez or David, who's more of a can be more of a target. So they have all these interesting like strikers from random places, but then they've also gone and just found value in Belgium, like in the Pro League in midfield. They've got Adam Zorgan, Rasmussen, who are all like not super young talents. They're like, you know, 27 odd years old, give or take. But it's just like their squad building keeps on taking different shapes as, you know, different situations evolve, because now they have Champions League. They maybe need a bit more experience, obviously need a deeper squad. So like from a player trading point of view, they're always super exciting to watch, super interesting to watch. And on the pitch as well, they like, despite all of these coaching changes, they've played a very similar style where it's something of a 3-5-2 formation. Like the midfield makeup changes a bit, but it's almost always a front two and a back three. And again, they can do some different stuff, but generally it's they can press high, but they have a good block. And in possession, they're not someone who's like super intricate trying to play through. They will go direct a fair bit, obviously, with these kinds of forwards, and also look to transition a good deal when they can. And they do sometimes get goals from midfield as well, depending on what sort of players they have, like someone like Cameron Puertas, who used to be there, I think is now in Saudi Arabia, but he got a bunch of goals. So they obviously have to change a lot depending on the players they have. But yeah, they're always like a super interesting team to watch in the transfer window. And then on the pitch as well, they're doing like very interesting stuff. So that's my Union Saint-Gilloise pitch to you. I mean, like they're obviously in the Champions League, so you are really going to see them at some point. But also the Belgian Pro League is just so fun. Like it's such an exciting league. Club Brugge also are very exciting. They'll be probably in the title race with them and also in the Champions League and just like beat up Monaco the other week. So like, yeah, it's a high quality league, a lot of talents and interesting stories. So, I mean, I haven't been paid by the Belgian Pro League, but like, guys, if you want promotion, I'll give you my bank details.
Well, and right now they are top of the league. Like they've got the best attack, they've got the best defense. Like it looks like they should be able to roll last season's title win into a bit of a dynasty. In the Champions League, they obviously started off with an away win at PSV, but they've got some tough fixtures. They've got Atleti, they've got Newcastle, they've got Inter, they've got Bayern Munich. How much of a threat do you think that they can be in European competition? Because obviously, there is a talent disadvantage here, we have to say.
Just a bit. Like they've got some dudes from Estonia and Slovenia coming in, and then they're gonna play Bayern with them. So all the best. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because, like, yeah, the top teams like a Bayern, those kinds of teams are obviously a bridge too far. But then there's some others, right? Like there's Galatasaray, there's Marseille. Like Atleti can have a bad day, not impossible. So like, I think they do Atalanta. Like who knows how they're gonna look like in January when they'll have Atalanta. So like I think there's this opportunity for them, and obviously starting with a win is huge. And the thing with them is like they're not like a Frankfurt where they're super open. Like they can be compact. Also they use set pieces well, unlike Elche, for example. They love their long throws. They have this English centre back called Christian Burgess, and like you look at their set pieces, like every set piece is going to his head, and he wins every header. So they're quite good in that sense as well. So yeah, I think they definitely can nick a result or two from there. I mean, obviously, like even if they get top 24, that's incredible achievement. But like I don't think they'll be like, I mean, there's some teams, right? Like obviously Karabakh managed to beat Benfica, so I don't know what the hell's going on. But like Kairat Almaty, for example, right? Who you're like, yeah, these guys, look, they're happy to be here. If they get some points, they'll be celebrating. I think Union are like one level above that. So they'll maybe just like try and be on the outskirts of the playoff spots.
Well, yeah, I mean that would be a huge result for them, and that is how they, I guess, can improve their wage bill. I mean, I don't know how much they need to do that. Like it seems to be working for them, but
It's going
that
well.
would, but that would be great for them. I think that's kind of it. Like, I mean, we've done a tour of several countries here, Neel, and as you say, you are always checking in on this. Like when you mentioned Bahoya, I was like, have I not seen you talk about this guy before? Did you not mention this last season? Or was it just like, a scouted tweet where I'm like, somebody's up in the middle of the night, like they've had a nightmare and now they're watching like third division football somewhere. But people can benefit from seeing what you're up to, what you're currently watching. If they follow you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
Yep, I'm at Cesc Neel on Twitter and BlueSky as well. So you can head over there. And of course, we'll also quickly plug in the newsletter because we've got more transfer grades coming up as we record this. We've had the Bundesliga one scored today for Thursday, which includes Frankfurt. And we also have Como coming up tomorrow with a bunch of other interesting teams. So yeah, do go check those out. And also like, I mean, like part of the reason we got this idea was because when like Ted asked for listener feedback, we got a lot of people saying they want to see and hear more of like from European football and from the other top 5 leagues. So of course, we really appreciate you guys sending your ideas as well. And if you have any, do let us know because I mean, look, if I get an excuse to talk about these teams, I am taking it. So give me some more excuses.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for everybody for your feedback. Like, we really appreciate everything that we've had from you guys so far. And yeah, do let us know what you'd like to see us cover in the newsletter, what you'd like to see us cover in the podcast, especially in these midweek episodes where we do have the ability to expand a little bit more and do some deeper dives into teams, managers, and players. Thank you, Neel, for being here today and shepherding me through these teams. And thank you to everybody watching or listening at home. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a good review on your favorite podcast app, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.